And there's no recovery really. You're just kind of gonna roll down. Yeah.
That one had popped and pulled out, I would have fallen directly on the way.
You like libraries?
I actually really do. We're out in El Dorado Canyon, which is right outside of Boulder, Colorado.
You had to be reincarnated as an animal. What animal would you pick? Welcome back to Bubba and the Bug.
That's right, where nothing is off the table.
Even though we don't have a table. Today we have a very special guest, Christian Hall. He's a real mountain climber, as you can see on his sweatshirt.
Heck yeah.
If you're looking at this.
Yeah, if you're watching us on YouTube.
Walls are meant for climbing.
Yeah.
Walls are meant for climbing, that's right.
I'm not sponsored by North Face, sadly.
Yeah, not yet.
You working on it though?
We'll see. We'll see.
If you had to be reincarnated as an animal, what animal would you pick?
Oh, I've already thought about this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Actually?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's like this whole spirit animal debate, you know?
Okay,
like,
sure.
What's your spirit animal?
Yeah.
I feel like this is the same thing.
Well, it's not... I don't care if you think the animal reflects your personality or not.
Yeah, but it's like if it
If
reflects
you die
your personality.
and
like,
you come back to life, what animal are you?
I'm going to think this through just so that I'm not hasty.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably like a mountain goat or something.
A mountain goat.
I know that's like a cliche, but like, dude, they're just cool.
Yeah,
They're
dude.
pretty cool.
I would be happy to be a mountain goat.
Dude, they have those like little hoof things with like they're kind of tilted forward and they'll just like stand on rocks all day.
Yeah.
And
You
just
ever
kind of
seen
perch
one
around.
mess up?
I haven't,
Dude,
but
it's terrifying. Like,
Is
I've
it?
seen videos of them slip, and it's like, oh no, you just made your worst mistake ever. And they're just rolling down the mountain.
Did they just tumble?
Yeah. They're just like spinning. They go into a huge spin. It's insane. Look it up. Mountain goat fail on YouTube. Right after.
Did they get back up?
on the bug. Huh?
Do they usually get back up?
I don't think so, dude.
They die.
They're just done. Lights out.
They're in such a sketchy position
Yeah.
that like one slip and there's no recovery really.
Wow.
You're just kind of gonna roll down.
Fun.
Do better.
Yeah. So
Well,
watch out. Watch
it's-
your step.
There's videos of those bears, I think. Something like that. It's like bears climbing up this cliff,
Yeah.
and it's like the cub just goes tumbling down. His mom
Um,
goes down, like grabs him, like hauls him up the cliff. It's
dude,
fun.
animals are pretty cool.
They are.
That's cool. So
There's
thanks for
something-
answering that question for me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Anytime.
And I have to say, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah.
So let's say a girl's gonna ask you out.
Yeah.
What's your
Last.
preferred location? Like, if she was gonna ask you out, where would you hope she would ask you out to?
Ask me out to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
but like honestly, I think the best first date is a library.
A library
Yeah, go to a library.
to read books.
Yeah, like look at the books. Like you learn a little more about each other. Like you have to whisper.
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of makes it a little more intimate.
Yeah.
Like
Really?
get to know them. Does it really? I think so.
Like, hey, here's a self-help section. Do you need to read any of these?
Yeah, like you can just see what she's interested in. She
Mhm.
sees what you're interested in.
That is cool. I'm just having. You think this would be a good first date idea?
I think it depends.
Okay.
It depends on how well you know the person, but
Because I couldn't see myself, like, if I was on any dating apps, I'm not, but, like, if I was, and I, matched with somebody or whatever,
Mhm.
and then I was like, or they were like, hey, you want to go to the library with me? I'd be like, probably not, actually. That doesn't sound really cool with a stranger. You know what I mean?
yeah. I think it also just depends on the type of person.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather not do something like super insane, like
Mhm.
loud and crazy. Like something probably a little more quiet, like a
Yeah.
hike or something, or
That's
Yeah.
true. So if you go to like a restaurant or a bar and they got music playing and
Yeah.
everyone's talking, you can barely hear the other person talking.
Mm.
That does suck.
I mean that's
Yeah.
just like me personally. So I think library's great.
Yeah.
You can go have a picnic afterwards, like
Mhm.
check out a book.
That's pretty cool. That's cool.
So you climb mountains?
Yeah, sometimes.
you've accomplished some cool things.
Yeah.
What's the coolest thing you've done
Coolest thing I've done
in terms of rock climbing, or actually in your whole life?
in my whole life.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, there's quite a few cool climbs I've done here in the States, but I think the most fun one I did was actually in the past month or so.
Yeah.
It's over in Rocky Mountain National Park, outside of it's kind of near Denver, right in the Rockies there. And there's Long's Peak, which is pretty famous, 14er. And in that, there's like this cirque. So it's like a bowl, essentially, surrounded by ridges. And then you have the peak on one side. And in that is a climb called Alexander's Chimney. And it's an ice and mixed climb. So
A mixed climb.
yeah, so I did it with my buddy. And rather than being like a rock climb where you're like using your hands and like you have your little rubber shoes on, we have mountaineering boots with like crampons, which are like spiky things.
Yeah.
And then we have ice tools, which are essentially like, ice axes, like the famous ones you see in movies.
Those are cool.
And we did it a little late in the season, so there wasn't a ton of ice on it. And there's a little bit of snow. And so we're like going up, and there are definitely some spots where it wasn't in, but we were like, yeah, we're going to keep going anyways. It wasn't too hard. So we're like going up. It's really fun, but you're just like out there in the mountains, and it feels like true to form alpinism in a sense.
Wild wilderness.
Yeah, it's like, you're up there in Alaska or the Alps or something like that, climbing like some of these big peaks, stuff like that, which is, rock climbing is really cool, and I love that, but I think my heart is definitely a little more towards like the alpinism, like big mountains, big faces, like stuff like that. And so this was a bigger, wilder taste of that. And it's been on my tick list for years.
Yeah.
And
Sick.
I was stoked to do it.
Heck yeah.
That's super
What's
sick.
the mixed of it all? It's like half rock, half ice?
Yeah, so it's like, what is it? So we like sold the first pitch because it was pretty easy. And we were like, rather than rope up, like, because you go up this like little ramp of snow, and then you kind of hop off, and it's like you have this huge face. So it's like the huge face is facing like west.
Okay.
So you go up south up this like snow ramp, and then you're looking up at it, and you're like, okay, like look at this thing, like it just follows this giant crack / chimney up. And so we sold up the first little bit, and then we're looking at this spot, and there's a little bit of ice. So, ice climbing is just like, especially in like the Alpine or in Colorado, it comes in, it like ebbs and flows. Like sometimes you'll have more ice, sometimes you'll have less. So there wasn't a lot of ice on it at the moment. So that means rather than using, our tools to swing into the ice, we're using our tools and we're like placing them on the rock. So it's like, you essentially like take like the backside of a hammer, and you're like placing it on these little tiny little like crystal things.
Oh, wow.
It's really fun.
Yeah, it sounds scary.
It was pretty scary, but like, I don't know, we've done a little bit of it, not like super duper experienced in mixed climbing, but it's wild. It's like so delicate. That's what I love about it. It's like so delicate. You just have to be like so careful, and it's really techy, and it's just a blast. So we blast up this first pitch. I think normally it has ice on it, and there are just some weird like torque moves. Like you stick your tool in, the handle's in there, and then you just like twist it in the crack, and you just have to hold it there, and then you kind of like get a nice little, it's called a torque, and get your feet up, and like my buddy who's leading it, he has a stick in like a little chunk of ice up there, and it was a little sketchy because the ice was a little delaminated, which we found out soon, and the chunk of ice just breaks off. And so he like slides down, and he's like hanging on one tool, and like I'm just like taking in slack as much as I can. And like it was a little scary, but that was the closest call of the day, and he like cruised up it.
You taking any falls?
No falls that day.
Any falls at all ever?
Try not to. That's the thing with like ice and mixed climbing, is it's like you can fall, but falling is a little more consequential than like when you're rock climbing, because you have sharp things on your feet, sharp things on your hands. Like you know.
Dang. What's the biggest fall you've taken? Like, you think?
I was out in Zion doing some aid climbing,
Yeah.
which is like essentially where you like clip pieces, like throw in pieces of gear into the rock, and then you clip it with a ladder. And so I was doing some aid climbing, and I was being kind of careless because it was an easy aid pitch. It was just like, just hauling away, and I placed this really like crappy 0.2 cam, which is maybe like the width of your pinky.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So it's pretty small, and like I throw it in there, I like stand up on it, and I didn't like bounce test it or anything, and I like stand up on it, and I'm like looking around, and it like torques a little, and I like look down, I'm like no, it's fine. And I like look up, and I'm like way up in the top of my like ladder.
Yeah.
So it's like the piece that I was clipped into is maybe at like, I don't know, middle of my shin.
Right.
And like I'm reaching up, and the next thing I know, just pop.
Oh no.
And like free falling because of all of my aid gear in the weird corner.
Yeah.
It was really unfortunate. I like flipped upside down.
Oof.
And I look up, and I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And I had fallen maybe like, I don't know, 50, 60 feet.
No.
Not like a huge fall, but like
That's pretty good though, dude.
it was
That's scary.
How do
It's
you?
terrifying. Actually.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. How do you?
50 to 60 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even realize. I was just standing up on it. It goes pop, and next thing I know, I'm like, like upside down. Oh crap! And I look over at my climbing partner, the guy who's blaming me, and I'm like, dude. And I was like, holy smokes!
Yeah.
So you're just dangling upside down. You fell 5 stories. Are you like on the rock?
5 stories. Luckily, like, so because it was in a corner,
Yeah.
that's kind of why I flipped upside down.
Okay.
Typically you try not to, but like I said, I was being a little careless at the moment.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I had one piece between me and the belay.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's essentially like where my climbing partner was, he was on these 2 bolts drilled into his face, and he's just hanging there. And so I go off, and I'm following this crack system up into the right, and placing gear as I go, and I was back cleaning because it was a long piece, a long pitch, and so I was trying to save gear so that.
So you're like taking a one out as you go, like
It's like I'll place one in, clip
take
it,
one out.
like, and then take the one below it out.
Right.
And
So you making bigger gaps.
Gaps.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like 30-ish feet off the belay, something like that. This was my second piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had like one other piece in, and that one was about the size of like, I don't know, maybe the width of your thumb.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a 0.4 size is what they call it.
Gotcha.
And if that one had popped and pulled out, I would have fallen directly on the belay, which is what we try to avoid because it's called factor 2 falls. Because you're just amplifying the force on the belay.
And does your buddy is your buddy anchored in, or would he like go up with as you fell, or how?
He's anchored in, but he got yanked.
Yeah.
He got freaking thrown into the wall.
How much did he go up?
It just depends on how long your tether is.
Gotcha.
So he was clove into the anchor with the rope.
Mm.
So he throws the rope's tied into your harness. It goes directly to the anchor, and then it's clove hitched.
Mm.
And you can just hang on that like all day. It's
Gotcha.
super bomber.
Yeah.
And so he probably got thrown up like, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet, not
Gotcha.
super far.
Right.
But
When you take a fall like that, or anything that's kind of just rattles you a little bit,
yeah,
what is your recovery like? What's your mental reset? Because I imagine that, I don't know, maybe you just were like, oh, that was, not super great, and then you just got right back in it, or you had to take a moment and just like decompress and like just reset. Like, how do you recover from something like that?
yeah, I think it depends.
Yeah.
So we were in the middle of like a pretty big climb.
Yeah.
I think it was 12 pitches, so that's like 12 rope lengths.
Okay.
So we were on like pitch 5 or 6, something like that.
So you're about halfway through.
Yeah. And I just remember looking at it and being like, just like the biggest like sigh, and I was like, well. And I was like, objective 1. I essentially just like, my brain was like, all right, let's split this up into little objectives.
Okay.
Because if I try to like do the whole day in once
Yeah.
in one like mental push, then I'm just going to be fried.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, one step at a time. So it was like, get back up to the belay. So I like jugged back up to the belay, and I was like praying the whole time. I was like, because I still had that 0.4 in, and I was like, I swear, I just need to get back up so that like if that blows, like I'm not screwed. And it would have been fine, but it might not have been the prettiest. And so I'm like, get up to the belay. I'm like, all right. Reorganize my gear. So I like look at him. I'm like, all right, we ready? And so I go off on the next one, and I was a little extra slow because I was being careful this time.
Yeah.
Probably a little overly careful.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we made it through, but it's just kind of like one thing at a time.
Yeah.
It's just like deep breath. All right, what's the next move?
Mm.
And after that, what's the next move?
So you took a
Trucking.
huge obstacle and you just kind of divvied it up into smaller obstacles
Yeah.
and just tackled each one. That's pretty smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to get something big accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Taking it back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
how did you get introduced to climbing? When did you start climbing? You know, what got you into it?
What got me into it?
Yeah.
When I first went to college, so I moved out to Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
and because I was like, I want to get out of here.
Okay.
Like, I was like, I love my family, love my friends, but I was like, I need to get out of here.
Mhm.
I want to go do something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Really wanted to see the world and see what I could, I guess, do on my own.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I go out to college, and I'm out there for a little bit. And growing up, I always read books. There's one book in particular that was about Everest. And so I had gotten it in my mind, like I don't know if I'm going to climb Everest, but I want to climb Denali. And
Mhm.
I was like, I'm going to climb Denali one day. And so I go out to college, and I like meet some guys, and some of them were in my small group. They were into climbing outdoors. A lot of them were really into trail running as well. And they kind of introduced me to it.
Yeah.
And I also kind of pursued it on my own. So I was like, this is something I want to do. And I had no clue what I was doing. Definitely probably put myself in some sketchy situations, but I think that's the nature of getting into climbing, especially outdoors.
Mm.
And from there, it just kind of progressed, and I started rock climbing more and more, became more proficient in being able to just like take myself out. And was it 2021? I went, and there's an organization, Youth with a Mission.
Mm.
They ran what's called the Outdoor Ministry Program, and at the time it was 9 months. And so the whole goal of that was this like combination of like Christian ministry and guiding in the outdoors. And so
Yeah.
I was like, that looks sick.
Yeah.
And I was really interested in the guiding.
Mm-hmm.
And
When you started out, were you doing like a lot of bouldering at first, or
Yeah.
did you kind of get into ropes pretty quick?
I did a little bit of ropes first, but I got into bouldering. It was really just like I wanted to pursue this, and it's kind of a lot of climbing is you find mentors.
Mm.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about it is it's not something that like you can teach yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can to an extent, but you can learn a lot faster if you have mentors.
Mm.
And so people to like kind of be there and guide you along. And it's really cool to be able to like look forward to one day. Hopefully I'll have learned a little more.
Yeah.
And to be able to mentor other people.
That's cool, man. Nice. Well, I think this is a pretty good little stopping point for now. We'll take a break real quick and come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Welcome back. Just got me a little piece of water. We're ready to keep going. So, dude, Christian, man, what's like one of the wildest things that's happened during rock climbing?
Wildest things. Earlier this summer I was climbing with this guy. It was like our second time climbing. We're out in El Dorado Canyon, which is right outside of Boulder, Colorado. And second time climbing together. He's a pretty cool guy. I knew him from work. And we start up this climb. And so I'm like, all right, dude, like I'll lead the first pitch. Ripped up it, made the belay, brought him up. So we're one pitch into this climb. And he starts off on the second pitch. And this pitch is typically pretty easy. Like it might take you like 15 minutes to romp up it.
Yeah, he's leading the second pitch.
Yeah, he's leading the second pitch. And so he gets up there and it's just taking forever.
Mm.
And I'm like looking at my watch. It's like 15 minutes past. Like, okay, like maybe he's just like trying to find a spot to make a belay, like bring me up, And next thing I know, 30 minutes have passed, and I'm like, okay, like starting tapping my foot, like what's going on? Like there are people coming up behind us, and I'm like, like, all right, like, come on, dude, get moving, like, he's. From what I saw, like, we had done a few other things together, and he was pretty competent, pretty quick most of the time.
Right.
Good climber, awesome dude. But it's just like, man, it's taking forever. So 45 minutes hits.
Oh, shit.
And we're getting close to an hour mark.
Dang.
And
No way.
I'm like, dear Lord, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, all right, like, let's get things moving here. And I finally hear Christian on belay. So like I start climbing, I like get up to him, and I'm like, you good? And he's like, yeah. And he's just silent for a few seconds, and it's just like looks at me. He's like, not gonna lie, dude, I pooped myself. I sit there looking at him like,
no.
That's a funny joke. Like, ha 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 ha. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. And then he's like, no, like, I legitimately, like, pooped my pants.
Oh my gosh.
Mid climb.
Yeah.
While he's climbing, he's multitasking.
I don't even know, man.
Or
I
is
think he just, like, he was like...
stopping and pushing and then climbing.
Oh my gosh.
I think what he said is he was like, he leaves the belay, so he's starting the second pitch. He was like, right as he did that, he's like, I just felt it hit. He was like, snap. And he's like, all right.
It's like pushing on the harness.
And just fired it up to the ledge. And I'm like, okay.
Uh-huh.
And so he says he gets up to this like little ledge, and he's like standing up there, and he's like, it's coming. And he just pooped. And so I think he said like, he like proceeds to like, it's a really spacious ledge, so I think he like took his leg loops off, because you can unclip him from the back.
Oh really?
And so he like slides his leg loops off, takes his pants off, takes his underwear off. Like he said, he like proceeds to just like clean everything up. And then he takes his underwear, which is where everything is contained,
Yeah.
wads it up in a ball and sticks it in his chalk bag.
Oh my god.
And so, like,
dude.
Cinches up his chalk bag.
he cinches up his chalk bag, like ties it off, and then like hangs it from the back of his harness. So it's like dangling like in between his feet.
Poop sack.
It's literally just a chalk bag full of like poopy underwear. Like,
Better than chucking it off the ledge, I
like
guess.
a mud falcon.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Or just finding a nice big crack and sticking it in there.
Yeah, thankfully he didn't do that.
That's
And so I get up there and I'm like, dude, what? He's like, yeah. And poor guy looks so embarrassed. And I was like, it's okay. Like, it happens.
Dude.
Pack it in, pack it out.
I'm like, so what do we do now? Like, we can bail, we can wrap down. He's like, no, I'm good to keep going. so we finished the climb. We had like 4 more pitches to go.
How did he get chalk? Did he use your chalk?
He didn't.
No.
He
Didn't chalk up
he
at
didn't.
all?
He didn't chalk up. I think there were a couple times where it was like maybe a hard move or two, and he was like, "Hey, can I borrow some chalk?" And he just like kind of looked down at the ground like, "Oh, can I borrow some chalk?"
Oh my
And I was like, "Yeah, you're good." And
Jeez,
it was just like hanging down between his legs the entire climb.
And,
and-
yeah.
Poor
You're
guy.
just under him, just hoping it doesn't fall.
I was like, I'll lead. I'll lead
I'll
more.
lead.
Like, I'll volunteer to lead more. I think he let me take one of the leads from him.
That's crazy. You never pooped yourself while climbing.
I haven't. I mean, not since I was a kid.
Oh, really?
What is
Yeah.
a
That
kid?
must be nice.
How old is a kid?
How old is it? Dude, I don't even remember. I was hanging out with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was hanging out with you, and I was like, I don't want to go home because I know if I like walk in that door, my mom's not gonna let me leave. So I was like, I want to keep like out. I think we were outside biking or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And I was just like, dude, just like straight up clenching like so hard. Like, I don't know how I had any circulation in my cheeks.
Oh my gosh.
Dang, dude.
And then at one point, it's just like, boom.
Let it rip.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I was like, hey Kyle, my mom said I need to go home. Like,
I don't recall you pooping your pants.
I don't think I told you. I think I was just like, shoot, I gotta go.
I gotta go, man.
It's time for me to go home, and I think I just waddled back home.
Jeez, man.
Dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you got me into rock climbing a little bit.
I did.
Yeah,
I guess.
More indoor stuff, but we probably went to a gym for the first time. My first time with you, maybe like 5 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then I was like, "This is cool, man. I could see this," but I still didn't like to do the auto belays, just the bouldering. And then probably a year or two later, went again to a different gym that only had bouldering. I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool."
Yeah.
And then they built one here close to our house. And
The climbing gym?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went a few more times, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get into this.
Huh.
The bouldering part is really what I like, but as you know, I'm pretty afraid of heights. I don't know. I'm good if it's like a roller coaster or something where I'm like
strapped in,
locked into something like some sort of structure, but like free hanging, free climbing. Something about it makes me really sweaty, dude.
Yeah.
Even if it's a movie and someone's climbing, like, and it's like, even if it's fake, but like you're just seeing them like climbing, like my hands get sweaty.
Jeez, dude.
It's like I don't know what it is, but
yeah,
I've been working on it.
That's good.
Yeah, getting a little better.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what was the draw to that for you for the gym?
To the gym?
Yeah.
I really just like the physical and mental challenge of it. It's not an exercise where you're just like exercising for the sake of exercise. Like there's like a fun, just like puzzle, like a puzzle to it kind of.
Okay.
And it just feels so good to like be working on a line and then like get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just in the process you're like kind of exercising, but it's not like the main point of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So kind of like problem solving.
Yeah, problem solving. There you go.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
And like you said, like you started out more bouldering probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely bouldering is like super like tiny, like analytical, like problem solving kind of deal.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't have to go up high. Freak out, man.
Yeah. I've been getting into climbing a little bit more. I'm definitely not as good as you guys, but I do enjoy it. And I think one thing I noticed when I started going to the climbing gyms around here was people in the community are pretty friendly. Like,
yeah.
I just show up and start doing some different routes, and then they'll come up and talk to you and be like, oh yeah, I've been working on this one. And it just seems pretty, friendly, carefree, just kind of like everybody's in it, supporting each other, almost like the hiking community, on the trail. So, did you notice that too when you got into climbing, like, just how the community was?
Yeah, the community is super tight-knit. I think, like, historically, it's been kind of a niche thing. So, I mean, you look back at those guys way back in Yosemite who kind of pioneered a lot of the sport, and, they're weird dudes. Like, they're wild, and, they did some really courageous things.
Yeah.
But they're characters, and I think from what I've seen also, a lot of like guys who do the big alpine stuff, say like Mark Twight, Steve House, Vince Anderson, some of those like big names in there, like were really influenced by like, say the punk scene or like metal scene. It's
an outcast kind of thing.
Yeah, in a way, like it's, I think the community around it and the philosophy behind it is to get really good at it, it has to become like your entire life. Maybe unless you're like a competition climber and doing, stuff like that they do in the Olympics, but it's like if you're climbing big mountains or you're climbing like really hard stuff like outdoors, it kind of becomes your entire life.
Yeah.
And so it's a really cool community, very welcoming, and I'd be intrigued to hear like how that compares like from what you've seen to like the hiking community, because they are both outdoor communities.
Right. Yeah.
Varied.
Yeah. The hiking community is, I think, definitely bigger and more established, and just it's just larger. It's just massive now. I mean, it seems like it's getting more popular, every year.
Yeah.
More and more people try to do the AT and the other long distance trails. But I do think they're very similar, and I think a lot of people who have a love for the outdoors, they get into both or, other outdoor activities, and they just kind of enjoy it in that kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like hiking might be the same.
Yeah.
Like long distance hiking, but for a lot of people it becomes in a way an identity.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to someone, he's been climbing for like 30 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, he knows his stuff, and he differentiates, especially like around the Denver area. There's a lot of people that really enjoy climbing,
right?
But they're not. He's the term like someone who climbs versus someone who's a climber.
Yeah.
And it's like climbers, it's like their entire life. Like you have guys like there's he died a few years back, but Brad Gobright, absolutely unhinged. Like, man he was rad, but he did this thing called simul climbing. And I've been learning a little bit about it recently. It's where essentially you take a rope and you and your partner tie into opposite ends of the rope, and you both climb at the same time.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like you always have like the rope in between you, but like you don't have that much gear. Yeah. So it's like maybe on a climb that's like 6, pitches long, say 600 something feet tall, like depending on how comfortable you are in that terrain, you could place as little as like 6 pieces of gear.
Yeah.
So you have like...
You're climbing side by side, kind of?
No, you're climbing like...
Okay.
On opposite ends. So it's like one person just blasts up, and then once the rope gets kind of tight, second person climbs, and they just match their speed.
Wow.
And it's like...
That seems really interesting.
And if the bottom guy falls, the top guy falls to the first gear.
Yeah, if the bottom guy falls, that's what's so dangerous. It's like the bottom guy falls, the top guy gets yanked off.
Oh, gosh.
Gets yanked down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's scary.
Yeah. And I mean, depending on how like comfortable you are and how much gear you're placing, like if you're not placing any, like you could take some pretty big falls. But your mindset changes in that kind of climbing. Right. It's like I'm placing pieces to keep me from dying rather than from keeping me to get hurt. Because if someone falls, then we're getting hurt. It's kind of just you accept that level of risk.
Is climbing for you, like you're talking about these different scenarios and these different types of climbing where it's like the risk, you can kind of make the risk higher if you want, and you kind of gotta accept it. Is there kind of a therapeutic element to it for you, for like just climbing in general?
Yeah,
especially in the mountains.
I think it's just something of like you're dialed in on something.
Yeah,
you're focused in on something. That's all your brain is thinking about.
Like, this is my purpose right now. I just need to get up this.
Yeah. So you're just focused on that, and I think it goes hand in hand with like perfecting a craft, and that's why I tend to prefer like bigger, more alpine objectives, because I see it more as like art in a way. So it may be a weird way to put it, but like, then say like doing like a little boulder problem, it's like you can pretty much like perfect that in every single way, and it's hard to perfect stuff out in the mountains because there's so much going on. You just kind of have to like roll with it and like shape the experience as you go.
For people who are, because I think a lot of people will hear that you said perfecting a craft, and they'll be like, I think that's just very appealing, and I think people are looking for a craft that they love to do and that they want to perfect. If there's somebody listening or watching and they're like, oh wow, this sounds really cool, like what would be just some baseline tips for getting into climbing and beginning to perfect that craft, or at least partake in it?
Yeah. Honestly, I think the biggest thing is just like going for it.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of maybe cliche.
You think it's okay to start in a gym?
Yeah.
And just climb in a gym for a while and like maybe not even touch outside climbing for a year or something? I mean,
I think it all depends on what you want out of it. It's like it's become really a really broad thing.
Right.
And you can like kind of fit it into so many things. Just like kind of make it what you want, essentially. So if you want to go climb like big mountains, go do that. Like, you have to start somewhere, and I think like a gym is a really good spot to start. Or like you can take classes, you can hire guides. In the United States, there's the American Mountain Guide Association, and pretty decent standards as far as like what they expect of guides and the training they go through, and or read and watch YouTube.
Yeah.
Probably if you really want like the fast track, so to say, which I think, climbing is part of the joy of it is finding like joy in the process rather than just like trying to get to the end goal.
Right.
Is like mentors, like I said.
Right.
If you can find people like who know what they're doing, shoot them an email or like send them like a text or something like that, because I'll talk to other guys who are a lot more experienced than me, because I'm just kind of like dipping my toes into the water here.
Yeah.
And like you might have to like be able to, you might have to put in a lot of hard work and all that, like, like, hey, can I go out with you? Like, I just want to see, like, say they're working on a project or something like that. There's a guy who climbs like 513, 514, something like that.
Yeah.
He's working on it. Like, hey, can I just go out and like give you a catch and like carry all your gear? And like, if you're willing to put in the work, most people are like willing to mentor you.
Mm.
But I think if you're not like willing to put yourself out there, or not willing to put in the work, then I don't know, it's gonna be hard to find a mentor. Anyways, mentorship is like the biggest thing I think.
Yeah, that's good.
Good perspective.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
Real quick.
We have questions?
Yeah, there's some questions we need to answer.
Okay.
So why are you guys called Bubba and the Bug?
Yeah, so that's a viewer question actually. Or someone asked us that on social media. Why are we called Bubba and the Bug?
Yeah.
And we always call each other Bubba usually.
Yeah.
Especially, you probably started that, I think.
I
Yeah,
did.
you started calling me Bubba.
Yeah.
And your nickname since forever has been Carter Bug.
Yeah.
Kind of like a mom-given nickname.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
And it just kind of got shortened to Bug.
Yeah.
And so that's why the show's called Bubba and the Bug.
Bubba and the Bug.
Yeah.
So you're Bubba and I'm the Bug.
Yeah, it's pretty
right.
simple.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not much to it.
Yeah.
So that's that question answered. Check.
Yeah. If you guys have any more questions,
Put them in the comments.
yeah. Drop them.
Yeah, give us a 5-star rating while you're at it too
Yeah.
on Spotify.
Yeah, if you want to hear more from Christian Hall, legendary mountain climber,
Yeah.
then
You better tell us.
You better give us some feedback and be like,
Or
oh,
else
you guys need to have him again.
We're never bringing him back on.
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet. Well, that wraps up this episode, guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Talk to you later now.
Yeah, that there.
Yeah. Actually, I want to end every video with that.
Talk to you later. All right.
I'll be like, this is how we end phone calls.
Yeah.
Pretty much every phone call we have.
Yeah.
So that's how we're going to start ending every podcast.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later now.
All right. Bye.